Yo guys, it's me Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Warriors. We are finished with the British Pokemon League's fourth season. Oh, fifth season it might be. We are here. We have, as I say, we have finished our Mono Steel run. So when we drafted our team in the very beginning, as you might have seen, I drafted an all steel type team. The league is a VGC Nat Dex, and I'm just going to basically review my team and rank each team member from best to worst performer over the season, and just give my opinions on why I think each one was where they are. But yeah, without further ado, let's just have a look at my season as a whole. So yeah, I finished fourth. I managed to make it all the way to finishing regular season, 11 matches against 11 different coaches. We managed to finish 8-3. We managed to win against 8 teams and lose against 3 others. And yeah, we made it into playoffs. We got randomized in playoffs to face. So in playoffs, top 8 teams get picked through, and they're reseeded and randomized. So who you play against in round 1 of winners bracket is was done through a lottery, like a lottery system, names out of a hat type situation, and you then play your matches in the winners bracket. If you lose in the winners bracket, you fall into the losers bracket, where you get one final chance in playoffs, hence it being a double elimination, and you try and fight your way through the losers bracket to losers final, and then the winner of the losers final to play the winners of the winners final for the grand final. Anyway, we got matched up against Aaron T. Marshall, which is probably the worst matchup for me and my team, my Monoseal team. It was up against Mega Swampert, Pelipper, Hitmonlee, and Turtonator, and they beat me in regular season 2-0. I managed to take a game off them in the second time we played, did 2-1, didn't do too well, and yeah, so we move on from the winners bracket straight away. Bearing in mind, I was seed number 3 and Aaron is seed number 1. So already it was randomized to have 2 of the top seeds, 2 out of the top 3 seeds face off against each other in round 1. So really big match straight out the gate. In a regular league, that wouldn't normally happen. Like I would be faced on probably the opposite side of the bracket to Aaron, or I would be in the same side of the bracket as maybe Lat, who was second seed. And I probably wouldn't have faced off against Aaron until at least maybe round 2 or something like that. So I would have been a little bit further along the winners bracket. Hopefully. Bearing in mind, every team below 5th through 8th I had beaten in regular season, and the only teams I hadn't beaten in regular season were teams 1, 2, and 4. Neither of which in a normal draft league would I be facing in round 1 of playoffs. So it was very unfortunate that I ended up against probably the only team I feel on paper I just cannot beat. And yeah, so we move on from that into losers bracket. We face off against Jay Jingles in losers round 1. Managed to take the win against Jay. He was actually him and the Toronto 6. He was playing in place of another team. He took over the team that I don't remember. Dogsy's, I think it was Draco's team, and they were the Rookies when I played them in week 1 or week 2. And so I hadn't actually played this team because he'd made a complete overhaul of the team. He had kept maybe 1 or 2 mons the same, but refacing it again, I managed to take the win, and then move on to losers round 2. Now, losers round 2 was against a team I had actually lost to in regular season, Crizzle on the South Croydon Swords. We managed to keep it a close game, and we did manage to win 2-1. That put us all the way through into losers round 3, which basically put us inside the top 4. And we ended up facing off against Aaron T. Marshall, who had also dropped into losers the round before. So we faced off against Aaron T. Marshall, where he handed me my final defeat of the season, 2-0. This time bringing Swampert and Pelipper, Turtonator, and Hitmonlee as usual. But he also brought along the Bronzong, which I was a little bit under-prepped for, admittedly, considering he'd used so many of the same mons up to that point. But I felt like we had a bit of a chance. I just got really unlucky with my decision-making against him, like some 50-50 calls, and a little bit of RNG luck against me a bit. Especially like getting hit by my own confusion, Hurricane, and if I just made a better call in game 2, I think it could have been closer. But honestly, that's what in game 1. Sorry, it's what happens. It was a really good set though, and yeah. And that is the reason why we're making this video, because we are finally out. We hit out. We are 4th. Aaron moved on into losers final, managed to take the win there. Meaning he is guaranteed 2nd place finish at least, and Latvian, the winner's final loser, lost out at the final hurdle, finishing 3rd himself, which is kind of funny because we've only played once as well, so it would have been cool to have played that again. I feel like it's unfortunate. I only actually I played Aaron 3 times in that season. It was hard. And yeah, he's off to go face off against his champion, him versus Meme-Based God, or Meme, the most handsome man in Texas, I believe. So yeah, that's enough about my run through the playoffs. Let's talk about the team. So as you can see here, like some talking about some of the stats and stuff. You can see Heatran was like one of my strongest kill leaders. I mean, 24 kills, 10 deaths. Megagross, 25 kills, 11 deaths. 2 really good mons there. They are my S tiers after all. I do think that it's hard when both your S tiers match up so poorly against a team that you can't really bring either, and that's kind of what happened against me and Aaron. I could just never bring Heatran or Megagross reliably, and not having my S tiers with me, I definitely think cost me the game a little bit. So then there's Napoleon. You can see that I brought Napoleon a lot. It was one of my only fire neutral mons. One of my only mons that can pressure both fire and ground types effectively. Got some kills, probably not as many kills as I'd like to have got along the way, but it did well. Died a lot more than I wanted it to. Klefki, really good, brought a lot. It's actually higher. This is not updated from the last match I played. Definitely did. I am really impressed with Klefki. I mean, as in, it got some decent damage. It did really good support. Togedemaru really picked up mid to end season, where I started bringing Togedemaru more, just to provide a few alternate ways to control speed and stuff. It got some really good KO kills in the playoff run. Really saved my boots in playoffs losers round 2. So yeah, Togedemaru did really well. Aegislash I only picked up at the halfway point of the season. Traded it for Bronzor for Aegislash, and my god, what a trade that was. Aegislash, considering it was only here for half my matches, wasn't here for the first half of my season. I brought it 13 times, got 14 KOs. Like, that's really impressive in my opinion. It did die a lot more because obviously, unlike Heatran or Metagross, I mean, this is a C tier after all. Unlike those two, it's not as defensive, so it would get a lot of KOs, but it would often be KO'd in return. I had Agron. I thought Agron did well when it came. Some good iron defense body press sets. Usually it'd be coming as the Mega form. I had brought it a couple times outside of Mega, including a Choice Scarf set once and a Power Herb set one other time. It definitely rarely died. It did get an extra death on itself this time, though, unfortunately, and it didn't get to get a KO with it. So it will be decreasing its KD, should I say. Really unfortunate that. Had one of the better KDs of the all games brought to deaths. It had one of the better ones of the entire season. But yeah, did all right. Kling Clang, Trashmon, underwhelming as hell. I tried to set up a Trick Room with sometimes. I tried to do shift stuff. It just couldn't be. It wasn't reliable in the slightest. But there wasn't anything else better in C tier really outside of Berserker. And I just didn't really have a role for Berserker to play on my team. Most of the time I wasn't running steel type stab anyway, so Steely Spirit wasn't going to be much help. Although I probably could have done with like an extra fake out user and another tough claws mon with some good coverage. So that was sorely missed. Steelix was really good, but unfortunately, it being a lot more useful with Trick Room, I just wasn't able to get a good Trick Room mode going. So Steelix just was failed there. Fortress was a super fun bring. I thought it was really fun to try and build a Fortress sometimes. Its stats are just not ideal enough for what I wanted to do most weeks. Its coverage was interesting to say the least, and yeah, like it didn't get any KOs, but like it is D tier mon after all. Like I wasn't expecting it to really do too much, just a few niche matchups. And then Skarmory was an absolute baller pick. So yeah, let's just get into ranking the teams. So I think it'll be pretty fun. So we'll start off with who I thought was the least effective mon on my team, and we start off with Geared Up for Failure, the Klinklang. So Klinklang was the only Trick Room mon available, really. There's only like 3 Steel type Trick Room mons, and that's Bronzong, Bronzor, and the Klinklang line, or just Klinklang. And Bronzong got picked way too soon for me. Like, it got sniped right off the radar. So I only picked Klinklang because I wanted a Trick Room as an option, especially with most Steel types being quite slow. However, I only used Trick Room about twice the entire season, and every time I used Trick Room, I just lost. I either got encored into my own Trick Room, which is hilarious, or it just straight up wasn't worth setting the Trick Room. So, really unreliable mon. Didn't do me any good. It had such a shallow move pool as well. Like, its physical attacks were really bad, like inaccurate steel stab. Its special move pool was okay with some like electric coverage, so it did offer me some electric coverage into some teams where I didn't have elsewhere. Like, it gave me a reason to like possibly run it against some bulky water types, but most of the bulky water types I was struggling with were either immune to electric or they had electric support, so like electric redirection support. So not really much use there. Like it just never really found a reason to want to bring Klinklang. It was too fast for Trick Room as well. It had some decent bulk, like not it 115 defense is pretty good. It just kept failing, and then it provides no alternative typing. Like, it's just steel, so I'm getting hit by fire, fighting, ground, all types that are going to be brought against me all the time. So it was just going to get hit by the trinity of steel weaknesses, and I just never really found a good use for it. It was really underwhelming to use in practice, and I probably would not be using Klinklang again in a mono steel type team. So we'll move on to my number 10. My number 10 was Fortress, the Bench Warmer. The Bench Wormer. Yeah, the Bagworm Pokemon. So it was a good defensive typing. Like, Steel and Bug is really good defensively. Like, outside of fire types, it does really well. And there was a few matchups where there wasn't a fire type, and honestly, there was a few more matchups where there wasn't a fire type, and I kind of wished I'd brought Fortress. But I just ended up not having a niche for it to fill on the team in those weeks, or I felt like I had better mons elsewhere to do. The move pool is rather difficult as well. Like, there wasn't really good reliable bug moves. It doesn't really, like, if I ever wanted it to run bug moves, it would have Pin Missile as its best bug move, really, and it just wasn't really effective in that way. It just always seemed to be like outclassed by the rest of my team. I always had a better mon or something else to fill a role that week over Fortress, but I enjoyed using it nonetheless. Like, when I did use it, it was really fun. Like, it was cool to like set Reflect or Sunny Day or try and Geiger Drain or Volt Switch with it. So at least provided some coverage, which I didn't have elsewhere. So that was really good. And even though it was only brought like 4 times, I do think it came to team preview at least four different matches. So I at least had that on my team for 4 different weeks. My number 9 team, this is where the mons actually get really good. Like, I actually think my team was pretty deep and diverse, but it was really good as well. Like, I never really felt like, outside of Klinklang, none of the mons really upset me. So number 9 was Steelix. I'm still waiting to find a use for him. He had a good move pool. Like, don't get me wrong, like Rockhead, Sturdy, Sheer Force, the abilities were really good. And then you had like, I was considering special Steelix 1 week with like Earth Power. It was good to have like Jarrow Roll, Heavy Slam on it. It had Steel Roller, that worked really well 1 week. Some ground coverage. Its Mega Steelix was a little bit underwhelming, to be honest. I actually preferred using Steelix outside of its Mega. I tried using Mega Steelix once. Didn't work out. I just didn't really have a good way to set up Sand Force, and to be honest, it seemed to function better with like Iron Defense or Curse sets anyway. But it was also providing me with wide guard in some matchups, so that was really fun. But the problem was is that its best role, the niche that Steelix provided was already being filled elsewhere. Like it's basically a defensive tank with some slight with a slight special weakness, and the fact that it's weak to water as well really didn't help Steelix out too much. I didn't have a lot of water checks, and I just couldn't really pressure water types with it. But however, its ground typing was also good in other scenarios because I didn't have many electric resists either, so having Steelix to provide an electric immunity was really good. I remember in one of my matches against a Regieleki, Steelix basically hard countered it, and it was really helpful considering Regieleki was being a huge pain to prep for that week. So yeah, that was Steelix at number 9. At number 8, we've got the Titanium Wall. We have Agron. Filter and the defenses were amazing. Like when I actually brought it to Mega Agron, it was doing so well. Iron Defense and Body Press walled so many physical mons. Like a physical mon was not touching this, and the only way they were able to do it was like with close combat. To be honest, like that's the only way anyone was getting past, because even the ground moves weren't doing enough damage to Mega Agron. The problem is that I didn't have good recovery, and I didn't really have good recovery on my team to support it. And the other issue is that most of the time I was getting set up on by like special mons or like mons that resisted fighting, so I wasn't able to really get body press to work as much as I would like to in some matches. Just because of like flying types or something come against it, and with fighting moves and fire moves or special fire type moves, and like that's when Agron really started to fail. Like it really needed support like light screens and stuff, and I just couldn't always get a good position for it to do that. And the other issue is that its best set was needed Megastone, and that was kind of competed against with like Megagross on my team, or even Steelix on the occasion. And the fact that I had a bad trick room mode made it really hard to position Agron effectively for most games. Like Agron was ended up having to be like going slow, when Agron's best when it's like in trick room, body press or cursed up, and then it's able to just do big damage with like body presses, and then there's the rock slides for just constant chip into teams, especially like teams that had resists against fighting or fighting immunities. So that was Agron. I thought it was really good when it came. Like, don't get me wrong, like Agron soloed some teams just because of its pure defensive nature. It's really good, but it was outperformed elsewhere on my team. So at number 7 we have Techno Mouse. So the mouse full of tech. Definitely provided that supportive role that my team also needed, like helping hand after you, nuzzle, fake out, like moves that my team didn't have elsewhere, and was super vital. Like I even had Endeavor on this Mon, I had Super Fang on this Mon. It was really good. It was my only fake out Mon, which was good. It was a good fake out Mon. It was quite fast as well, like base 98 or something speed, but it just wasn't fast enough. So, sorry, it is fast, but just it always missing out that speed benchmarks. Like I'd always end up having to have going up against teams with faster mons than I had, and Togedemaru being my fastest mon outside of Mega was not the best, but it was a good point. Like it was good value for what Togedemaru offered. There was only limited options I could actually run on it physically. I felt like I was always limited to like physical electric or physical steel, and there was nothing really I could do damage wise to certain mons. So I was having to rely on a lot of its support. Sometimes Togedemaru could be left by the opponent because they felt no pressure, and that was kind of an issue. There's also like a dilemma with item choice. Like I'd want to run Focus Sash, but I'd be running it elsewhere, so I'd end up having to run, okay, I'm running it Sturdy this week, even though I kind of want to run it Lightning Rod or Iron Barbs. And then, even if I was running it Sturdy, I'm like, well, what item do I really want on it? Like, there's not really an item to really include. Like, I wasn't being offensive with it, but I wasn't doing a supportive set that could require an item. So a lot of the time I'd end up running like Custap Berry on it or something just so I get that extra priority. And don't get me wrong, that really helped me out in some matches, especially against like an Unburdened Horlucha, where I was able to, or a Choice Scarf Horlucha, where I was able to outspeed it the following turn, or rather priority against it. And Togedemaru was a key to my success in many games. Like a Scarf after you in one matchup allowed me to catch my opponents off guard, thinking they would be faster than my Heatran, and I just be able to Scarf Eruption them with a different mon, a mon that's faster than what Heatran can be. So that was really fun. It was also, with it having the Focus Sash or the Sturdy ability, I can't remember which one, was able to live an extra turn than it should have done and allowed me to finish the game with Togedemaru just on 1 HP. So yeah, like Togedemaru was a big support to my team. It was definitely key in some matchups, although it was a little bit difficult to use at times. We come to my number 6 mon, the bestest bird, or the beastest bird, or yeah, it's fine. The bestest bird. So Skarmory offered me my only ground immunity of my team because I removed my other Levitate mon, which was huge. I definitely needed it. It had a neutral to fighting as well, which meant I was only weak to fire from Steel type's typical weaknesses, but it was weak to electric. However, Togedemaru did offer that lightning rod on some occasions, so it was okay. So like, it had a really good defensive typing. It also had a great defensive move set with like Iron Defense Curse and Body Press. But unlike Agron, it has Roost, which is a hugely reliable recovery. Allows me to just get healed up, and it meant that Skarmory could just solo some games once all the special attackers had gone down. The biggest issue though for my team was like special mons were really hard to deal with in some games. Like, it could become a defensive wall, but like trying to beat some of the special mons meant I had to try and outpower them, and that wasn't always great for Skarmory when I wanted to be like just defensively bulky and like boost on them. It was also my only Tailwind option, and because of this, like Skarmory ended up having a 4 move syndrome where it always wanted to run more than 4 moves, and it was always hard to decide which 4 moves I would run. Should I run Setup? Should I run Taunt? Should I run Tailwind? Should I run Roost? Should I run Brave Bird and Body Press? Should I run another Steel move or something? So like, Skarmory was always struggling to find 4 moves that would be the most effective or the most optimum for that matchup. But for a low tier, like it was the lowest tier, it was hugely great value. Like, it was immense value, and it allowed me to win games that I probably shouldn't have won elsewise. So huge respect for Skarmory in that regard. So we move on to number 5. And number 5 is I Trident to win. So I Trident to win. It was a really tried to make this pun work. It was based on like try to win, but yeah. Napoleon was my only fire neutral steel type, so it was the only steel type I had that wasn't immune or weak to fire types, and this was good because I was able to pressure both fire and ground types. Its alternate ability to fire was really good and allowed me to really mix up what type of set I was running on Napoleon. Like, I'd run a mixed attacker set. Sometimes I ran Swords Dance, sometimes I ran special like Icy Wind, sometimes I was just pure special offense with like Specs, sometimes I was physical Life Orb with Aqua Jet. It was really good and it allowed me to be really diverse with what I wanted to do with the Napoleon. However, the problem I had was that there's this trade-off between damage output and bulk. Like, it could live an attack but then do no damage, or it could do big damage but not live the attacks it needs to. And it was always this like back and forth, like what should I do? And then but sometimes it'd be okay because you'd be able to go, okay, well, I'll make it way more bulkier, and then I'll just chuck like a choice specs on it or something, or a life orb, and just have damage output that way. The problem is though with that is that I would often be hit on both the physical and special side with really strong, super effective moves. Like I'd be hit by a strong fighting move and then hit by a strong special ground move or something. And Napoleon really struggled to tank those type of hits. It was often 2-hit KO'd by a lot of things. So it just wasn't as bulky as I'd want it to be, but also didn't have as much damage output as I'd probably want it to be. Nonetheless, it pressured those fire and ground types that I wouldn't have been able to pressure elsewise. And the other biggest issue I had with Napoleon is that it was my only water resist, so it was like it resisted water type damage, but it had no way to pressure opposing water types outside of Grass Knot. And like Grass Knot isn't the best move, to be honest. It's good against like some like weighty opponents, so it's always good for like hitting ground types or rock types with, but like hitting some lighter water types just wasn't cutting it, and it made some matches really difficult to deal with. So yeah, then my number 4 is the sword is mightier than the pen. So this is a mid-season trade. It was a fantastic trade. It did make my team more weak to Ghost, which is something that I was already cautious of, because I wasn't running Bisharp, which is a Ghost neutral mon. I'm probably the only Steel type that actually is neutral to Ghosts. Because Steel and Dark. However, it provided so much coverage and it was so versatile. It could be physical, I could have run it special, I could have run it supportive. It was just really, really good, and it always filled in a role for me that after I got it. Like it came to most weeks after I made the trade, and I just gave this huge offensive pressure, either physical or special, for whichever the situation demanded. It hugely increased my team's coverage, meaning like strong close combats, head smashes, solar blades, like Sacred Sword as well, like allow me to hit through defense boosts and stuff. Like it was really good. But there was also the Scarf sets I'd run sometimes. King's Shield would be a little bit predictable sometimes, like the opponent would be able to predict, oh, he's going to King's Shield here. Like sometimes you can use that to the advantage and be like, okay, well, he thinks I'm going to protect here, so I'm just going to attack. And it gives you an extra turn now, like 8 slots that way. It was very risky though. It was a very high risk, high reward type of mon. It tanked a lot of hits in its shield form. But the moment it switched from its shield to King's to Blade form was when A-Flash became in trouble. But it was nice that it gets access to like Shadow Sneak, so it's always able to get at least an attack off at the start of a turn, or it's able to just King Shield back up again, which is really nice. But yeah, no, I had huge respect for A-Slash. I think it performed really well for me this season, and I look forward to using it again another season. So my number 3 is the Megagross damage. So incredible damage and bulk. Like Megagross was just so bulky, huge damage output. It lived pretty much any attack that was thrown its way. Sometimes it even lived double ups. It's got brilliant coverage, although not all are boosted by its Tough Claws ability. But it was really nice to have a clear body mon to begin with, and then play around Intimidate a bit before Mega Evolving it into Mega, where it get a Tough Claws boost as well. It was the fastest Steel type I had on the team at base 110. And it was one of the only fast Steel types that actually over base speed 100, so it was really nice to get at least one fastest mon on the team. The problem with that is that I often end up having to run a lot of speed on it over bulking offense, but it never really came to be a problem in most matches. It was still living hits regardless and taking the damage needed thanks to the Tough Claws ability. The biggest issue is that it was always requiring the Mega Stone to be good, and because of that, like I didn't have a much item choice variety, and it sometimes restricted some of the megas lower down on the list, like Agron, because I never really wanted to bring Megagross without bringing it as a Mega. I think I only brought it once with like Choice Scarf, and I lost that week. So I even think I brought Mega Steelix that week. So yeah, it needed the Mega Stone to be good, but when it did have the Mega Stone, it was very good. At least on my team. I think in some other teams you could run a normal Steelix pretty reliably, and it was always reliable damage. Like it was always guaranteed to do like at least 50% to majority of mons, which is huge. Like it was doing about 40% damage to like a Cresselia, which is really nice, just shy of. So yeah, like Megagross, huge respect, did really well, and we move on to number 2. Many of you might be surprised, but my number 2 is Scarf Eruption. Enough said. There's nothing more to this mon. It's literally just Scarf Eruption. It had amazing special damage. It would win games by itself, or rather, it's self-supported with Sunny Day Clef Key. One of the funniest things I found during this Mars Steel team is I often found myself setting Sun more than I would set Rain. And that's because I would just set Sun, Choice Scarf, Heatran would just obliterate the competition with like Choice Scarf Eruptions in Sunny Day with like off Heatran's special attack stat. Oh, it was huge amounts of damage. It was also rather bulky, like you wouldn't expect it for a mon that has a 4x weakness, but it could survive so many different hits. And with Shock and Berry, it would even survive most ground type attacks. Had Flash Fire as well, giving me an important fire immunity where I only had one of them on that was neutral to fire, so I often needed Heatran for that. But it has great coverage as well, so it also got access to ground and dragon moves to hit those pesky those pesky steel type mons that were resisting Heatran's attack, like other fire types or other dragon types. So Heatran did huge wonders for my team. It was one of my best, if not my best, defensive piece to my Mono Steel team. The only issue Heatran really had was that it always struggled against like some bulkier water types, especially as it's the only way to really deal with them is to like have Sunny Day set and then be able to use some solar beams into those water types. But yeah, Heatran did really well. Super impressed by Heatran. Like I didn't expect it to do as well as it did. But like it single-handedly got me through like at least half my matches just by scarfing it alone or speed control elsewhere on my team. So yeah, speaking of, my final one, my key to success was Klefki. Pranks is OP. Like it's not as good outside of max, but Pranks is so good. Like it was able to do damage control, it was able to do speed and item control with Switcheroo or Thunder Wave or Switcheroo Iron Ball. It was so versatile, like it could run nearly any move you wanted in a week. And that was the biggest issue, like it had 4-move syndrome so bad. Like you'd want to run about 6 or 7 different moves in a week. It had Metal Sound to help boost the damage of my special attackers, which are already a little bit on the low side. It had surprisingly consistent chip damage, having base 18 both attack and special attack meant it could be run either physical or special, and like Dazzling Gleam, Foul Play on the bulkier sets, or even a Steel Beam one week, like it was able to always just do consistent chip damage to the opponent's side, even when it wasn't doing tech support. It was able to control damage, it was able to control sun and rain with some rain belts and Sunny Day. Biggest issue for Klefki was probably Mega Swampert, honestly. Like, it's hit super hard by Mega Swampert. I can't switch a its item, I can't Thunder Wave it to slow it down, and I can Sunny Day, but if they had the Pelipper to just reset Rain Dance. So Klefki's hardest matchup was definitely that Mega Swampert. Outside of that, I felt Klefki had a really good time this season. But that's it. That's my rankings of my Mono Steel type team and some of my insights and thoughts into how I felt like each mon performed. I'm hoping this is a bit of a short video. I'm not sure yet. But I will leave it there, guys. I hope you stick around to watch some of my other matches coming up, like some VDL and the Game Rooms Jousting Juniors matches. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Give the BPL a shout out, and also a huge thanks to the guys who do run the BPL. Fantastic season, and I hope to see you, the BPL lot, and you next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.